Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Armoured Corps is Captain Dan Solomon. We warmly welcome members of the Legacy Youth Group who are joining us this evening. We are honoured to acknowledge Rear Admiral John Corker, Pacific Fleet Civil Engineer and Commander, Naval Facilities Engineering Command Pacific, United States of America, and the accompanying delegation, and Mr. Gordon Ramsay, ACT Minister for Veterans and Seniors. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony around Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the International School Group College, Sainte Marie, France. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Sapper William Forrest. William Forrest, known as Bill, was born in 1894 to George and Martha Forrest of Bendigo, Victoria. He attended the local Violet Street School in Bendigo and went on to work as a coach trimmer. William was one of 4 brothers to serve in the Australian Imperial Force, enlisting in July 1915. He was originally posted to the 10th Battalion, but his technical interests saw him quickly transferred to signals. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving for active service overseas in November 1915. Forrest first went to Egypt and from there to France, but his technical aptitude saw him sent to Bletchley in England, where he qualified for the Royal Flying Corps. His aptitude for telegraphy and photography saw him detailed for home service with the earliest form of the Australian Flying Corps. Instead, Sapper Forrest returned to the 2nd Australian Division Signals Company in order to get to the Western Front, arriving in March 1917, 2 weeks after his brother Jack had been killed in action while serving with the 60th Battalion. Forrest was willing to do his bit in the front line, at least once volunteering to go out into no man's land with a small party of men to lay a communication cable. On 3rd of May 1917, the Signals Company participated in a major operation near the French village of Bullecourt, bearing cable before the operation and ensuring communication could be maintained. Half an hour after the attack was launched, the forward party followed the infantry to try to maintain communications. During the operation, Sapper Bill Forrest was caught in shell fire and killed instantly. His remains were recovered from the battlefield and today lay in Quillant Road Cemetery in Boissy, France. 2 of Forrest's mates, Sappers Douglas and Patterson, wrote home to his family to express their sorrow at his loss. We cannot express to you all the grief we feel in losing Bill. He was not a fellow to take liberties with, but once his real character was fathomed, he became not only an interesting, but also helpful friend. We knew him in Australia, in Egypt, in England, and in France, and we found him always straight and a gentleman. It is hard to realise that he is gone with that fine band of heroic men. We miss him much, and although life out here is not calculated to inspire the sentiments, our hearts are deeply touched. Bill Forrest was 23 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sapper William Forrest, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, in the hope of a better world.
They shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and good evening.